The Big Beautiful Bill is a massive plan created by President Trump to cut taxes, reshape social programs, boost defense and border security, and spark new investments across America. It will affect almost everyone's money and the entire economy. Before we go into the details, let's break down the core numbers behind Trump's Big Beautiful Bill. The biggest chunk, by far, is the extension and expansion of Trump's tax cuts for individuals. This alone costs about $3.9 trillion, making it the single largest driver of the bill's costs. Next, about $270 billion would go towards bringing back business tax breaks, letting companies in Opportunity Zones 2.0 write off investments immediately. There's also around $663 billion in new tax cuts and spending. It is basically about keeping expanding a bunch of tax breaks. Things like no tax on tips, overtime pay, car loans, bigger deductions for seniors, more businesses write-offs, all aimed at cutting taxes for both regular people and businesses to boost the economy. Now, not everything is a cost. The bill includes about $1.05 trillion in offsets by cutting things like electric vehicle tax credits, green energy subsidies, tightening college-related payments, basically pulling back on certain spending and raising revenue from other places. The bill saves about $890 billion on healthcare by tightening Medicaid rules, cutting waste and fraud, limiting provider payments, and adding work requirements, basically making the system stricter and cheaper while still keeping some spending for things like drug price cuts. It also adds $144 billion to the Pentagon's budget and around $79 billion for border security, building the wall, more border patrol, and gear, all aimed at boosting defense and security. Altogether, we're looking at $3 trillion added to the national debt, or up to $5 trillion if the temporary cuts become permanent in 10 years. Now let's take a closer look at the tax cuts sector. First, the Big Beautiful Bill deducts taxes for tips and overtime. Workers can now deduct up to $25,000 in tips and up to $12,500 in overtime pay for their taxable income. But this benefit phases out once your income goes over $150,000, and it's not permanent. The deduction expires at the end of 2028. Still, for service and hourly workers, this is a big temporary tax break. Second, the Big Beautiful Bill slightly bumps up the child tax credit from $2,000 to $2,200 per child starting in 2025. After that, it adjusts 2 to 3% a year to keep up with inflation. It's a modest increase, but here's the catch. Nearly 17 million children may not get the full credit due to income limits or other eligibility rules. You have to earn above a certain threshold to get it. So while this helps some families, others still might be left out. Third, the biggest cost-cutting move in bills comes from Medicaid. We're talking about $800 billion in cuts over 10 years. For childless adults, there's a new work requirement, 80 hours per month. Plus, everyone has to prove their income and residency twice a year instead of once. These changes might mean up to 12 million people lose their coverage. It doesn't mean the program is getting canceled, the government is just tightening the eligibility of it. Fourth, the Big Beautiful Bill increases the standard deduction. Starting in 2025, single filers can now deduct $15,000 and married couples can deduct $30,000. That's up from the previous levels of about $13,800 and $27,600. These higher deductions apply through 2028 and will adjust for inflation over time. It's a straightforward way to let most Americans keep more of their paychecks before taxes. Fifth, the Big Beautiful Bill puts a cap on how much you can borrow from federal loans. Starting in 2026, grad students can borrow up to $100,000 in total, and those in medical or law programs get a higher cap of $200,000. This ends the current system where you could borrow unlimited amounts through Graduate Plus loans. Sixth, this bill shifts the focus away from green tech. It cuts fundings for things like solar and wind, and instead boosts oil, gas, and nuclear. Tax credits for solar panels and home upgrades are reduced, and states are now charged extra utility fees if your electricity use goes over a certain limit. This is the major reason that caused the breakup between Trump and Elon Musk. Seventh, there's a new big option for investors, the Trump Retirement Account, or TRSA. It's a Roth-style account with no income limit to contribute, starting in 2025. Parents of newborns get a $1,000 government gift to jumpstart the savings between 2025 and 2028. You can put in up to $5,000 a year after tax, and all of it must go into U.S. stock index funds only. Finally, for taxes, the Big Beautiful Bill doesn't leave out the wealthy. There's a 3% income boost for those making $1 million a year. The SALT deduction cap is raised from $10,000 to $40,000 for households making under $500,000, but that benefit phases out entirely above $500,000, and after 2029, the deduction cap goes back down to $10,000. The estate tax exemption also jumps to $15 million for singles and $30 million for couples starting in 2026. To stimulate the economy, the bill also makes the Opportunity Zones program permanent, tightens eligibility, and adds qualified rural opportunity funds. These funds get a 30% capital gain basis step up after 5 years, triple the original benefit, plus easier property improvement rules to spur rural investment. Other than taxes, the Big Beautiful Bill adds $150 billion defense boost, including funding for shipbuilding, munitions, the Golden Dome missile defense, and big investments in drones, AI, and uncrewed systems, pushing the Pentagon's total past $1 trillion. It also funds Trump's wall permanently, over 2,000 miles of total barriers, plus tech upgrades. It ramps up deportations to 1 million people a year, hires 10,000 more ICE officers, 5,000 customs staff, and 3,000 Border Patrol agents. There's even a side plan to let farm and hotel workers temporarily leave and return with legal status if employers vouch for them. In conclusion, the Big Beautiful is not as bad as it looks. This is basically a classical fiscal stimulus plan. In the short term, it is likely to boost the economy, but in the long term, it keeps America on the old path of growing the economy by borrowing more and more. National debt is expected to grow by $5 trillion over the next decade, bringing the total close to $42 trillion, which means even bigger debt for the future generations to deal with. If you liked this episode, give it a like and subscribe for more speedrunning economics.